Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural institutions. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today, via Zoom, we're heading to the American West as we explore one of the country's most remarkable cultural institutions, the Buffalo Bill Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming. The Center of the West is far more than a museum. It's a world-class complex that brings together five museums under one roof, preserving and interpreting the history, art, culture, wildlife, and stories that have shaped the American West. Through its exhibitions, collections, educational programs, and research initiatives, the center offers visitors a deeper understanding of one of the most fascinating and influential regions in our nation's history. Joining us today is Kirsten Michael, Visitor Services Director at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. During the program, we'll discuss several exciting programs, projects, and events that are taking place this summer, including the upcoming primary Buffalo Nation exhibition opening in August as part of America's 250th anniversary celebration and honoring the history and enduring significance of our national mammal, the American bison. Let's start by meeting Kirsten and then finding out all about the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. Let's start by meeting Kirsten and then finding out all about the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. Welcome, Kirsten. So delighted you're able to be here.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to share the Buffalo Bill Center of the West with the East Coast.
That'd be fabulous. I've learned so much, eager to find out more and have you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, I think it would be of interest if you'd just briefly maybe add a little bit more about your background and what your current position entails, please.
Sweet. Yeah, my background is in museum studies. I have a graduate degree that focuses on museum education and museum administration. I've always loved stories and been terrible at math, so I figured museums were a perfect solution to that. And I graduated back in 2017 with this degree, and I had an internship actually out here in Cody, Wyoming at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. And
Ah,
I had never been farther west than the Mississippi River. I'm originally from Illinois. And
ah.
one summer I was just like, hey, parents, I'm going to move to Wyoming. Come visit me when you can. And I fell in love with the mountains, this museum, its collections, and the stories and the people that it helps preserve and share with the world. So today, I've kind of worked my way up from intern to tour guide to admission supervisor to what I am today, which is the visitor services director. So now I supervise all of the frontline staff. So think
Wow.
admissions desk, the gift store, the eatery, all of those visitor services, kind of basics that people come in and that y'all need to use when you want to visit a museum. And I also get to just share and promote just the history of the American West while doing it because I get the chance to work with the public. And that's probably one of my favorite parts of this job.
Terrific, terrific. Yeah, lots to do, that's for sure. For viewers who may not be familiar with the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, what makes it such a unique destination among American museums?
So we're about 50 miles away from Yellowstone National Park, which is, of
Oh,
course, the first national park in the country, founded in the 1870s. And it's remarkable with its geysers, its wildlife, its geology. So we are right next to this national, internationally renowned destination for Yellowstone. But then we are in this little western town called Cody, Wyoming, founded by the man who made the West famous first, which was Buffalo Bill, also known as William F. Cody. So we are in the Rocky Mountain West. We are in cowboy country, Indian country. And as a museum, we're really unique in the sense that we're not just one single museum that focuses on the history of the American West. We're actually five museums and a
yeah.
research library and about 40 acres of outdoor garden space, sculpture stuff. So there is so much to do and so much to see. The museums themselves are world renowned. Our Whitney Western Art Museum has everything from historical classic artists like C.M. Russell, Remington, Albert Bierstadt, to modern contemporary artists, including Native American artists. We also have one of my favorite museums, which is the Cody Firearms Museum, which is a spectacular display of firearms history that dates back from ancient Chinese hand cannons all the way up to modern military firearms. And of course, our core strength is Western firearms, so think cowboy guns. Then we also have our Natural History Museum, which is everything in Yellowstone and the surrounding area, whether we're talking about the little tiny bacteria that create the colorful rainbow pools in Yellowstone or the giant buffalo that roam our frontier. And then we have, of course, our namesakes museum, Buffalo Bill Museum, which was our original museum that was started over 100 years ago, and it's grown into our complex today. And that's everything about Buffalo Bill as the man himself, his show, his role in creating kind of this mythical American West image, along with just general frontier and Cody history. And then, of course, we have one of the best collections of Native American cultural heritage on display in our collections in the Plains Indian Museum. So we like to joke that the Smithsonian wishes they had some of our artifacts, but we're very privileged to have it here in the context of the American West.
Terrific, terrific. Well, shortly we're going to go on a little behind the scenes tour of each of those museums and the research library. But leading into that, I mentioned in the introduction the Buffalo Nation celebration, and it's actually a 2-year celebration. Just a little bit of background for us. What inspired this celebration? How's it connected to the 250th, please?
So, this is one of my favorite questions to answer because we do get this question a lot. Like, okay, how does Buffalo connect to the American Revolution, all the stuff that's going on the East Coast? And you said it yourself, the buffalo is our national mammal. And that was chosen back in 2016 because it was the symbol of strength, of unity, of perseverance. And those are all a lot of adjectives that we like to use to describe just the American way. And so the buffalo becomes the symbol for just, America. And so it's really hard to celebrate the American Revolution War in Wyoming. We're about 2,000 miles away from Lexington and Concord and all these other battlefields of the Revolutionary War. But we found that one symbol crosses all 5 museums and our research library, and that is the buffalo. So we decided, it was a group effort, the curators, our advisors, that we decided if this is a symbol for the center and a symbol for the United States, and it's just a different kind of perspective that not a lot of people would maybe think of immediately when you're thinking about America on the 250th. So really, it is a celebration of this idea of unity, resilience, health. We were looking back for 250 years of what America was, and hopefully we're looking forward another 250 years to what America can be. And the buffalo really signifies this perseverance and strength and just utility that America can use to celebrate and remember.
I also mentioned that the primary Buffalo Nation celebration exhibition is going to be in August. Uh,
Mhm.
but to that extent, all those museums you've just bullet pointed have spotlighted exhibitions already since January underway and on view for visitors. So I think we're fortunate to have a selection of images. So we're going to go on a behind the scenes tour now, and I think just hear a little bit more about each of the museums that you highlighted and also what is spotlighted as part of the larger Buffalo Nation celebration. And seems like the best place to start is with the Buffalo Bill Museum itself. Just a little bit more, what's on view today and then what's being spotlighted, please.
Sure. So, of course, the Buffalo Bill Museum is going to feature Buffalo Bill and his life, including his early years where he was a frontiersman, a buffalo hunter, a military scout. I like to say that he didn't just talk a big game, he did walk the walk that he would then go to show millions of people across the globe what the West was to
Hmm.
him, to his compatriots. So we have what's really cool is that the Buffalo Bill Museum gets most of its artifacts from the Buffalo Bill estate. So he passed away in 1917, and his family immediately founded a memorial association because what Buffalo Bill did by traveling the world, sharing the West with audiences in Chicago, New York, Prague, Rome, Paris.
Hmm.
It was just so insane at the time because we're talking, before airplanes, before cars, that the Buffalo Bill family knew that if they didn't preserve his legends, preserve his stories, nobody would believe us in 100 years that he did it. So we have some really cool authentic artifacts, whether that's his original buffalo hunting firearm that he used, which is on display upstairs in our Buffalo Bill Museum, or actual show regalia, the clothing, the props that would be used in these massive arenas that he would set up. We also have just some really cool stuff for the Buffalo Nation spotlight exhibit because Buffalo Bill and Buffalo go hand in hand. A lot of people think that Buffalo Bill, he was a hunter for buffalo, but he was always a meat hunter. And he had some very colorful words to say about his opinions of those hide hunters or those trophy hunters that just
Hmm.
decimated the buffalo. He was not a fan because it really impacted his ability to do his job. It impacted this wildlife. And he actually became a really early conservationist for buffalo, which people don't realize. He actually had one of the largest private herd of buffalo uh, at the time because he's seeing their decimation and he's saying, okay, what does a country do if our own symbol of this specific special character, the buffalo, is disappearing? So Buffalo Bill early on works to preserve the buffalo, to conserve the buffalo, a huge proponent of that. And so for the Buffalo Nation aspect, one of the really important stories we tell is this conservationist aspect that
Hmm.
hunters, people who, might have had a hand in taking out the population, end up helping support it, whether that's through taxes or conservation efforts. So we talk a little bit about that with Buffalo Bill and the Buffalo Nations is that really, really important aspect of it's up to groups of people to help save the buffalo and help conserve the natural world, but it's also up to the individual. And Buffalo Bill really kind of perfectly cements that idea of it just takes one choice to decide to support and decide to be positive, that can make a change.
For the sake of time, we're going to move on to the Plains Indians Museum. And I know right now on display, wonderful series of photographs by Doug Hancock, Riders of the Buffalo Nation. What drew the center to this project?
So this is a really interesting project, and it once again goes hand in hand with the larger Buffalo Nation aspect. The Riders of the Buffalo Nation refers to the Native American history and tradition of rodeo and cowboy life. So a lot of people don't realize that cowboy, Native American rodeo, those tradition and cultures go hand in hand. They are not
Hmm.
separate, and they've gone hand in hand for generations. It's not anything new. Native Americans were some of the earliest, trick riders, horsemen in the United States. And so Riders of the Buffalo Nation was this really cool photo exhibit featuring Indigenous youth and communities through photographs by an Amsterdam-based photographer, Doug Hancock, which is also a very interesting perspective of, a non-American coming
Yeah.
through and seeing this very American culture. So we really wanted to showcase that buffalo culture is not gone. Just because the buffalo shrunken population were decimated doesn't mean that there aren't aspects of this culture still being preserved by both the non-indigenous folks and the indigenous folks. And so this exhibit is really cool. And it really highlights just this tension and harmony between past traditions like buffalo hunting, and then modern traditions, which is the bronc riding, the buffalo relays. And just it's a really cool way to meld past and present through a lens of Native American tradition.
Just a very short word on what's being spotlighted, the wonderful mural that's on display.
Yes. So in the Plains Indian Museum, we have this gorgeous mural by the artist John Hitchcock and some of his assistants. And it is just this beautiful, beautiful, it's bright, vibrant, and it highlights many different mammals and species out west and how they interact. And it focuses, of course, on the buffalo, which is both scientifically and culturally significant for the unity and balance of Yellowstone and our ecosystems out here. And John Hitchcock just did this really gorgeous ability to highlight the interwoven connectedness of the bugs, the mammals, the trees, the
Yeah.
plants. And so this is on display now, and it's hard to miss just with the bright pinks and blues. And it really does reflect the vibrancy and the significance of these animals out west.
No, it looks fabulous, fabulous. Again, keeping with our quick pace tour here, we're going to go to the Cody Firearms Museum and hear a few words about another fabulous exhibition called The Arms of the Revolution, exploring weaponry, technology of the Revolutionary War. What makes this exhibition timely and significant?
So the quick answer is, of course, it's the 250th anniversary this year of the Declaration of Independence signing. But what other things makes it really significant is just this idea of the impact humans, just single humans, can have on events and on momentous moments. And something really interesting about this exhibit is that it tells the story of the firearms being used, which can be a really fancy hunting rifle, a really junky pistol, or modern state-of-the-art French military guns that came in. But what's another kind of underlying theme is just the significance of the soldiers and their everyday tools and experiences, and this idea that there are no Revolutionary War veterans alive today. I don't know any 250-year-old people. But the idea is that these objects were there and they tell a story, and they really signify that the past is not some faraway tale, but really real and tangible. And these events that these firearms were part of are helping to tell that story, even without the original witnesses still around.
And I know on display are some incredible artifacts from Fort Ticonderoga, the Minuteman National Historical Park. So again, so much to see in just one of the five museums that make up the center. Another one being the Draper Natural History Museum. What's being spotlighted there for Buffalo Nation?
So the third tenet of the Buffalo Nation, so we have cultural significance, we have economic significance, and of course we have scientific and biological significance. Our Natural History Museum really focuses on the role that buffalo play in keeping the ecosystem balanced. Things like they're running around in the grass and their feces and stuff all have an impact on the health of the ecosystem. So what the Draper Natural History Museum is highlighting is that scientific aspect. And then of course that aspect of historic use, whether it's Native Americans hunting buffalo. One of the gorgeous centerpieces is this original bronze sculpture by T.D.
Mhm.
Kelsey of the buffalo falling off the cliff during a buffalo drive. And then it also goes into modern use of buffalo. There are buffalo hunting experiences out here, and there is, again, we still have that balancing act between modern hunters, modern farmers, historic use of these areas. So that's really what the Draper is focusing on, is telling that larger scientific conservation story again.
Mhm. And you also mentioned in some of your introductory remarks the wealth of art that's on display at the center at the Whitney Weston Art Museum. A few words, please, about this museum and what's being spotlighted right now.
The Whitney Western Art Museum is just a spectacular collection of both two-dimensional and three-dimensional Western pieces, whether that's the beautiful landscapes or modern contemporary pictures of locomotives, rodeos, things like that. It also has one of my favorite Buffalo Nation spotlights in it because it's called This Is Not a Buffalo. So historically, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have email. When people came out west in the early 1800s, late 1800s, they were reliant on descriptions, on painting, on sketches. And boy, did some people take some artistic liberty on what a buffalo looked like. And then, based on just descriptions, you would have newspapers and literary journals that tried to like sketch this large, fluffy animal with a big head and large shoulders. And so the Whitney has this awesome spotlight that is just like all these ridiculous lithographs and paintings of this is supposed to be a buffalo. For somebody who lives out here who sees buffalo all the time, I'm like, okay, what were they trying to draw? This does not look like a buffalo. So it's just a really fun and interesting way that even the perspectives of what we knew, how we knew it, what we envisioned the West to look like is different than reality.
In addition to these major museums, also referred to the McCracken Research Library. What are some of the major activities there and what's being showcased right now?
So, the McCracken Research Library is a spectacular collection of everything from books to film, photography, original engineer drawings from firearms industries, and of course, original writings from Buffalo Bill and other Western characters. So, they are supplementing the Buffalo Nation's exhibits from all across the museum with their own archival collection, whether it's pictures, newspaper articles, awesome pictures of Buffalo Bill literally carting around a herd of buffalo for his Wild West exhibition to show Eastern populations, European populations, these hulking animals, and the history of having hunts and their relationship with the Native Americans. So you'll see all kinds of black and white photographs, you'll see some different films, and of course, you'll see different archival record books being kept that talk about Buffalo Bill's hunting, modern hunting, and just it's a really cool, just diverse collection of, I mean, just the layers of buffalo and the history out west.
And all of what you've outlined in these last overview comments is just the beginning leading up to the primary exhibition, I believe August 22nd, which is going to be in the Duncan Special Exhibition Gallery. Just a few words of what's going to be available for visitors and others when this kicks off.
Okay, so all these small spotlights that we've been talking about culminate, like you said, in the big Buffalo Nations temporary exhibit that opens in August. And this is such an interesting exhibit because it has a lot of interactiveness. You know, you're told don't pet the fluffy cow in Yellowstone. We support that message, but this is your opportunity to explore the buffalo in a safe and productive way where we have interactive touching things. We have an interactive buffalo wallow that's being installed. So people can
Wow.
figure out, you know, you see the buffalo wallowing on the hillside in the dirt. We will not have a dirt puddle, just saying that. But we'll have some really cool interactive aspects. A really large section of the Buffalo Nation is devoted to the cultural significance of bison. And we have worked with an advisory council made up of Native Americans from a variety of tribal memberships to create elements of this exhibit design and stories that really focus on that historic and modern narrative with Native Americans. And we have some cool storytellers that are Native American who are sharing their stories. We have a buffalo rancher who's sharing their story as well. So that ranching is a huge part of conservation of buffalo. And then one of my favorite parts of the Buffalo Nation's exhibit is actually going to be this large section where the Wyoming Indian Middle School students are spending a year learning about their culture, their language, they're
Oh,
creating original artwork, and they've actually been gifted a buffalo from the Wind River Indian Reservation to use to actually make buffalo items that through the
wow.
historic methods. And those are all going to be on display in this Buffalo Nations exhibit.
Incredibly exciting. Wow, what an educational opportunity. Well, for everybody involved, but definitely the students. In addition to all the exhibitions, interactive activities, resources, there's another wonderful series that caught my eye, and that's the Signature Vault series, which gives viewers access to areas rarely seen by the public. Could you share a little bit about this incredible opportunity?
Yes, and this is a program near and dear to my heart because I helped found this series when I first started here at the Center of the West many years ago. And it's grown from just private tours in the museums to, yes, these signature vault tours. I got into the museum field because I wanted to go beyond the labels. I wanted to learn the stories and the histories that aren't just on display to the public. So these vault tours really allow visitors to experience a side of the museum that few people ever see. And it also helps reveal just the tremendous amount of stuff we have. At any given time, I mean, we have about 100,000 artifacts, over a
Wow.
million pieces of archival collections. So while the exhibitions showcase only a fraction of what we have, being able to come behind the scenes into our vaults you're able to see things that aren't on display that might never be on display because of different conservation concerns or just space issues. So this is really it reflects one of the greatest strengths of the center, which is just our collection. And that is one of the reasons people come out west, is because they don't want to just look at an internet web page of these cool things. They want to experience and engage with the authentic items. And so this is just another door that we open. It just happens to be a vault door that we get to open and share with the folks who visit.
That's fabulous, fabulous. What's been some of the reaction and feedback since January when Buffalo Nation kicked off from visitors, educators, others who have come to experience and enjoy it?
So, one of my favorite phrases that I listen for in the galleries when walking around just checking out things is, wow, I never knew that. And so, part of the Buffalo Nation aspect is really trying to highlight just history that people might not know. Most people, especially Americans, realize okay, buffalo roamed the frontier, they were decimated. Now it's really rare to see them, and I want to see them in Yellowstone. There's so much complexity and diversity in that story. And that's where having 5 museums and a research library showcasing different layers of that really comes into play. So I have watched an entire family just stare at that buffalo jump sculpture and being like, is that
Hmm.
really how they did it? These buffalo are huge. I've had, retirees just reading and laughing at the Whitney pictures because they're like, yeah, I could draw that stick buffalo, but I'm not famous for it. Yeah, so it's been really positive, and we have had so many people asking, like, when's the big one open? When's that going to happen? And they're really happy to hear that it's going to be up for 2 years, just
Yeah.
because they are excited to hear and see these authentic pieces interact with these histories and artifacts in new and different ways.
Nice, nice. Yeah, as visitor services director, what do you hope guests take away from their experience at the center?
That is a good question. And depending on the day, the answer might change. But I really hope people walk away from the center with just a sense of wonder and awe at the vibrancy of the American West. A lot of us, myself included, I grew up in Illinois, like I said, I had certain images and stereotypes in my mind when I was moving to Wyoming. My mother still thinks I might be robbed by gunpoint on the way to Yellowstone just because that's, it's not her culture. So I really want people to realize that it's so diverse out here and layered. And one of the benefits of all the museums is that we can showcase that vibrancy and layers. And then, of course, I want people to be able to walk away with just a deeper appreciation and a desire to engage with the West, whether that's picking up a book in our gift store, watching a spaghetti Western on TV, or, going into Yellowstone and exploring or telling somebody back home about their American Western adventure.
Well, you've certainly piqued our curiosity and definitely interest in making our way out west and visiting the center. For viewers and others, how can they stay informed, find out more about ongoing activities and things that are available as they book their reservations to come out?
So, of course, the central point I always send people to is our website, centerofthewest.org. And there you can read about upcoming exhibits, past exhibits, artists in residence, author talks for hosting. You can also book tickets there, whether you're just doing general admission visitation, which is our tickets that are good for 2 days because we are such a large museum.
Oh,
So
fabulous.
we want to give people the ability to come and go and be able to take it all in. You're also able to book the exclusive tours aspects and signature vault tours from our website. And then we're also on social media. I mean, it's Buffalo Bill Center of the West, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Our YouTube channel is really great because we record most of our lecture series. We have mini tours on there. And then, of course, we have different publications that you can sign up to participate in. Our Points West Journal goes out for 3 to 4 times a year. And that's awesome. That's modern history or modern projects that are happening, historic reports. And then, of course, one of my favorite aspects is our chef does special Western recipes to share with people.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, one way to get people involved is through their stomachs. So, and Western food is one of my favorite types.
Oh,
So,
that's
yeah, our
great.
website, social media, and then you're also always welcome to call our central line or even my phone and whatnot. Like I said, I love chatting with people and helping them create their Western experience.
Well, we're definitely grateful for taking the time to chat with us today, Kirsten. It's been so informative. We'll have those contact information and references in the closing credits, but unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program. I want to thank you again so much for being here. Looking forward to finding out more about the primary Buffalo Nation exhibition in August, as well as all upcoming events and programming. But for now, just want to wish you continued success with future endeavors.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much again for having me.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.